Hey guys, so for a long time you've been begging to see watches, and we're doing a series where I'm going to talk about watches that are coming through my hands, and you're going to get to see a lot of them, okay? We're going to do shorter videos where I'm going to describe every single watch. It's going to be by style, by brand. We're going to mix and match every single week with different things. Let's dive in. Today we're going to talk about tuxedo watches. It's something of quite big interest for people that are just starting because it's something different. The tuxedo dials are really reminiscent of the sector dials of the 20s and the 30s, and you do have a really cool and unique look to your watches, okay? I'm right now on the page of Hodinkee, which talks about it. About a year and a half ago, there was this whole assessment of what tuxedo watches are and are not. One of the three watches here is quite rare. The other two are pretty common in the industry. You can see them even on Hodinkee, they're talking about them. And it's interesting to see that all the ones that are featured on Hodinkee are the Universal Geneve. That's basically a tuxedo dial, very classy, very dressy. And what's cool is that they come in different versions, they come in different shapes, but the common denominator of the dials is that most of the time they're going to be black and the surrounding part is going to be metal or white. I also sold this year, and they also have it on Hodinkee. It's a Longines Tuxedo dial, which is the 38 millimeters, if I'm not wrong. It's a gorgeous watch for a modern watch, and it's pretty affordable as well. If you guys like that watch, you can actually buy one at your local retailer. They're part of the Classic Heritage collection. So I think those are still kind of affordable. Most probably you're going to see more of those tuxedos coming up on the market with the Breitling acquisition of Universal Geneve. I want to see what they're going to do about it because this is a very classic Gerald Genta design, and I don't want them to mess it up. The classic design of it is the fact that they're really slim. They're also micro-rotors, so I don't know if Breitling is going to be able to reproduce or come up with a micro-rotor movement for one of those if they do make one. Also, the fact that on the older ones, there was a loop, and in this case, I have it on the website. The crystal has been replaced in the past, and there was a inverse loop for the date. I don't know if that part of the design is going to be kept as well with Breitling. So those Polerouters by UGs are just fabulous to wear. Okay, if you have a smaller wrist, if you have 6.5, 7.5 inch wrists, it's a perfect watch for you. And the design, the fact that the crown is pretty petite for the time, the wavy lugs or the turn lugs are really amazing. It's something that most people are always considering to have in their collection. The second one that I really enjoy and that I've had many of is the 7995 Tudor. I still have this one on the website with a few videos that I did in the past few months about Tudors, about watches that no one wanted to buy. I actually sold almost all my Tudors tuxedos. It just happened this way. It was not planned, okay? I was just making people realize that there are so many cool watches out there that are still kind of affordable and are still quite rare. So this is the last one I have from the tuxedos. This one does have a perfect dial. All the lume is there, and the part that makes the tuxedo, so the metal part around it, is what I could call almost immaculate. Also, it has some kind of diamond effect in the cutouts of the inner bezel. That's really interesting to see in person. We cannot really reproduce it through video, but once you have it on your wrist, you might understand. The case is also very similar to the Polerouter date from UG in the sense that it's a bit thicker than the UG. Also, it doesn't have the wavy lugs. Some models do. Notably, I think the 7950 or the 7945 44, but those have a thicker case just because they have the 390 movement. So anything with the 7944 or 7950, some of them are tuxedo dials. Might they be golden or black or different little variations, but in general this is a pretty cool watch to wear. I just find it pretty unique, and Oyster cases as well, and it's a small watch to wear that also looks a bit bigger than the classic 34 millimeters. It just looks a bit chunkier just because of the inner bezel that makes it look a bit more solid. And then we get to the rarest of the watches that I have right now on hand. It's something that I never thought I would have. It's something that's almost museum quality in the way it is. Only thing that I was not able to find because I just don't like the crystal on this thing, just sits a bit too high to my taste. So I'll try to find a crystal that actually sits a bit lower. But in general, the dial is perfect, the lume is perfect on it. The gilt dial is really immaculate. You find those in 3 different sizes. This is a UK made watch, so this is a Dennison case. It does have the same movement as the bigger 32 and 34 millimeter cases. Most probably this is the rarest of the bunch. For one, a lot of people don't understand that if we're talking vintage watches, the ones that don't have a waterproof case or a screw down case are the ones that are less prone to be resisting the effects of humidity or wearing the watch many times. This one has an unpolished case. You can see the engraving on the back. That's mirror-like. We're going to take a few pictures and you're going to see them in more in detail. So there's no sign of polishing on the back. I don't know if the sides have been polished, but they do have a bit of an aftermarket brush to it, but it does look very, very good. I've never really had a Rolex with a Dennison case in the past, and what's cool is that you're gonna see on the website it's written Dennison for Rolex, and then it has basically different references on the back case, and it does have, once you remove the case back, it does have a reference right by the lower left lug, and you have a little reference there, a series of numbers. So this watch is original. It's a 30 millimeter, so it might wear a bit smaller, but the fact again that the case is very petite, it does look a bit bigger. It looks more like a 31 or 32 millimeters. So the dial is just a bit bigger than it should be on such a watch usually. The dustproof dials are just impossible to get. I just can't express how fascinating having a tuxedo dial Rolex in my hands is, and it's extremely important to have as a watch because they kind of showcase that they were able to do classic watches without too many pretensions, but making a really intricate and really desirable dial. It's one of the rarest watches most probably I've had in the past, regardless of Paul Newman's or whatever that I've seen or had in the past or still have. I think it's one of the coolest watches to have, especially in today's market. That's something that people would appreciate a lot more in a more professional context. Watches have the tendency lately of being made in smaller proportions than they used to be made before. A lot of people were going for bigger, and the proportions actually got out of the classic model. In general, like a Datejust 2, when you have it in your hands, you kind of see that the markers, the case, everything is off, and they didn't keep the proportions of the vintage ones, okay, or something that people were used to. So you go from a 36 millimeter in 2009, 2010, and although the 36 still exists, then you jump to a 41 millimeter that's completely out of proportion everywhere. The crown is too small versus the case. The case is too big versus the rest of the watch. the bezel is really thick versus the size of the watch as well. So everything was disproportionate from the beginning of 2010 and on. We're not talking about Panerai, which were just, big to begin with, but we're talking about watches that should have been just better designed visually. And if you're looking, for example, at the 7995 again, we're talking about a watch that was designed back in the 1960s. I think Rolex and Tudor made them for roughly about 13 or 14 years, and not much changed over that period of time. If we're looking at the I think I have one here. I do have a master catalog from Rolex, and we're gonna find the Tudors right here. I think I have them right at the back. There we go. So you're gonna have the 34 millimeter classics, including the advisor, which is the alarm one. You're still gonna have the Tudor Ranger, and this is dating from 1978, this catalog. And you have the 7995 here, or 7995-0, and that means it's just stainless steel. And even in 1978, you can still see the riveted bracelet 7205 that was still included with the watch. So Rolex and Tudor have been designing those watches with the idea of remaining classic and remaining in a way perfect. Those proportions, including if we're looking at, as you see, until 1978, we still have the home plate 7031 with the backlight bezel. We have a Tudor, that's a 70. That's not a 7928, that's a 9401. Okay, and that's the 94. Oh no, you still have the 7016. So it's pretty early stuff, which is super cool. As you can see, the transition of time, they were just keeping those models for a very long time in their catalog. And what's cool about this Tudor here, it's something that will never go out of fashion, and it's very well designed. Wanted to see more watches, so there it is. In this case, I wanted to talk about tuxedo watches. They're really fabulous little things. They're often not big, and except again, you're going to the Longines, which is more like 38, or if you're looking at the vintage ones, they tend to be a bit smaller. But in general, the ones that are able to get, they're going to be the Universal Geneve, the Tudor, and most probably a few of the modern ones out there. Really rarely you're gonna find the Rolex one, which is almost unobtainium in this market. If you do have any questions, just write us a little message below. If you do like any of those watches, also you can go and follow them on the website. And please subscribe if you like the video, and let us know what you think about tuxedo watches. If you have one, if you want one, if there's any questions about them, I'm going to be more than glad to be able to answer your questions. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.